So my name is Luca Passani. I'm the CTO of ScientiaMobile. Already a few years ago, we launched a module for NGINX, the open source NGINX. And this year, that module has been certified by NGINX for use with NGINX Plus. We are very proud of that. So I'm here to discuss, to tell you guys about what the module is and why it's relevant for a lot of companies. I'll start by talking about what device intelligence or device detection is in general. Let's say that device detection helps with a lot of issues connected to the mobile web, so accessing the web through mobile devices, smartphone, tablets, and any kind of user agent. You want to look at device detection when you have an issue of optimizing the user experience on mobile devices. This applies both to delivering smaller images to mobile devices. This applies to providing different navigation for mobile devices that don't have a mouse and a keyboard. And this also applies to having a better understanding of the demographics of your system. So, quick question: who here has heard of responsive web design? Please raise your hand. Yeah, say a good 80%. So yeah, I didn't expect anything less. Maybe I expect a little bit more because responsive web design has been around for some time. Now, there was a time before responsive web design when someone needed device detection in order to do mobile content. That was before smartphones. That was before media queries. And companies would deliver a mobile experience by creating an m.dot website or a .mobi website that was navigatable on mobile devices. Now, the arrival of responsive web design has tempted a lot of companies into having a one-size-fits-all user experience also for mobile. But as I will discuss in more depth later in the presentation, you will see that there is more to creating great mobile experiences than responsive web design. Going back to the use cases for device detection, in addition to the web experience, to the UX, to the user experience, which has to be enhanced for mobile devices, device intelligence is also about creating, understanding better how your users are using your system. For example, we integrated one of our products called WURFL.js with Google Analytics, and we realized in one of the dashboards that mobile traffic smartphone traffic, in fact, has dropped to 0. This was because we had introduced a mistake in the responsive template. And thanks to that analytics, we could understand that something big was going on. You know, with the loss of smartphone traffic was otherwise getting lost in the logs. And we also have other products that, for example, deal with reducing the payload on mobile devices, and we will discuss that in more depth later. A huge use case for device detection is, of course, the whole ad tech industry. So, creating banners, not only the size of the banner itself, but also targeting users based on their device and on features of the device, some obvious, some less obvious, is a key component for the whole ad tech industry. And if you look at this slide, you may suspect that I just created this slide to drop a few big names, but this is the reality. These are the companies that use our software for their device detection needs. The Facebook, Akamai, Google, Amazon, AWS. The reason why they do that is not only because the software is good and the solution works, but also because we're a US-based company and we have fully fledged engineering and fully fledged support teams. So whatever issue you have around device detection, we're there to listen and to improve and to work with our customers to fulfill their needs. So now that I've given the overview, let's look a little bit in more detail in how WURFL works under the hood. This used to be an animated slide, but for the NGINX audience, I guess that I can only use 30 seconds to let you know that when an HTTP request comes in, our software will do a bunch of analysis of the HTTP request, mostly the user agent, and we'll find a profile corresponding to that user agent. And then you can also find all the properties. And those properties are returned to the developer or to NGINX through an API. I could use 5 minutes on this slide to explain in more detail how the API works under the hood, all the logic to analyze the system, to analyze the HTTP request. But the getaway point really is we do a lot of analysis, not only to identify the actual device, but also to avoid false positives, which is really key in a lot of different scenarios. And there is a caching part to improve performance and all of this. So, coming to the most relevant part of the presentation, how does the WURFL module integrate with NGINX? The first example that I have for you guys today is the fast CGI integration. So the red lines in the configuration are the lines that import the WURFL module into NGINX. The WURFL.zip file is the file that contains all the data, and it needs to be updated now and again to get new definition of new devices that have been shipped on the market over the last few weeks. The blue settings are about the in-memory cache that you want to give to the module. You don't really need. Usually, most people will not play with those settings, but you can do it. You know, if you have some specific reasons why you want to increase the speed for speed versus memory dichotomy as usual. The really relevant part is the red part. The black lines where I just tell WURFL, okay, give me the value of this property. Is the user agent, is this client a tablet? Is it a smartphone? Is it a mobile device? What operating system is it running? And once I have those properties, I can just do the integration with fast CGI. I mean, this is probably very familiar to most of you. And instruct fast CGI to make the WURFL properties, the device detection properties, available to the fast CGI environment. This means that the PHP developer downstream can easily look up those properties in his application. Another important use case is image resizing. So this is a bit of an old slide. I'm sorry I didn't get one which is newer, because it refers to a couple of years ago. And already a couple of years ago, your average web page was on 1 megabyte. And that's a lot for a mobile device. If you look at the same data today, you are probably around 2 megabytes. But the key point is that 64% of that payload is images. And you don't want to send 2 megabytes of stuff to a mobile device, because even if you are with Wi-Fi, even if you have a top-notch mobile device or smartphone, even if you are under LTE, once that payload is delivered, you may find yourself trying to scroll and the device won't scroll. So you'd have the paradox of a responsive website that is not very responsive, if you will. It's probably happened to you. I mean, like trying to scroll, to zoom, and the device just isn't responding. So you want to avoid that. The scenario I made here, which solves the problem by using NGINX, is a scenario that assumes that you have a component in the network that can resize images for you. So with WURFL, you query a couple of properties, the resolution, width, and height of the device, and you use those properties for requesting resize image from your network component. And this would effectively solve the problem of multi-serving the same image in different dimensions to different clients, depending on depending on the actual capabilities of that device. Yet another use case is load balancing. Now, you probably know way more than me about load balancing. With the WURFL module, you can still do load balancing, but you can do it with policies that are not normally possible with regular NGINX. So this is a slide that has nothing special. These are just 3 server pools for load balancing. And by the name, you're probably already guessing what I'm getting at. One pool for smartphone, another one for tablets, and another pool for everything else. And what I'm doing here, I'm using the smartphone and these tablet properties to map the pool of servers that will handle the request. This is where the magic is, because this slide here is just the proxy path. And I imagine that it's no secret to anyone that the functioning of this is pretty clear to everyone here. Now, this is the use case. There is a new use case, the missing headers, which is the one that gives the name to this presentation. And the point here is, wouldn't it be awesome if HTTP came with extra information like, oh, is this device a tablet? Oh, what's the price of this device? What's the screen size? All properties that are not part of the HTTP request, of course, but that would be really useful for developers downstream. So we created a scenario here where a large organization has a lot of departments, and each department has selected their own platform for their web needs. A department has Apache plus PHP, another department still uses Microsoft IIS with active server pages, and yet another department has light HTTP with fast CGI. And so what we do here is, thanks to the WURFL module, we can create new headers and piggyback those headers to each and every HTTP request that goes through NGINX. And that means that okay, then of course, same thing. I can do the proxy thing and decide if I just want, if I just want some of the headers to be available to some of the departments. Anyway, the point is that with this mechanism, then the different departments will still be able to use their existing frameworks to create mobile applications. And this mobile application will be able to use the enriched HTTP that is being delivered by NGINX. Just to give you an example of which properties are popular, the first 6 are the one I've already mentioned in the presentation. The last 2 are interesting because you have the release date of the device and the price of the device when it was released on the market. Now, in the ad tech industry, they are able to map this information. They are able to relate this information to the propensity by a user to actually buy mobile content. Now, it's not obvious how to extract the price from a user agent, for example. In fact, you can't. What we do, part of our work is to constantly be on top of the evolution of the device market and to constantly make sure that this information is being maintained in our device repository. Now, I mentioned already responsive web design. I mentioned the problem with the payload, the size of images that get delivered to websites, which is not ideal for mobile devices, even when delivered through responsive. And I think there is really a question. So if everyone has flocked to responsive because they assumed that was the solution, so let's take a step back and say, what was the problem again? And the problem was really to make websites usable on mobile devices. And if that was the problem, responsive web design is a step in the right direction, but it's not the complete answer. It's not the complete answer because the problem of delivering this large picture to mobile device is there. One question you guys may ask is, Luca, if the problem is so big, why hasn't the industry or why haven't the standard bodies addressed the issue in some way or form? And the answer is that they actually have. Some of you may have heard of the responsive image specification that augments the image tag and introduces the picture element. The picture element tells the browser, look at where you're running, and depending on whether you have a retina display, how big the screen is, just select a different version. Now, this one may appear like a solution, but it is really not, because it's just moving the problem from being a technical problem, how do I specify multiple pictures in the HTML, to being a problem of art direction, having a team of people that are there optimizing, resizing, and changing the size and producing multiple versions of the same picture for mobile devices. Now, even large companies usually have a problem coming up with those teams. You know, just having 2, 3, 4 people whose job is just to constantly adjust images manually. We, as a company, have a product that addresses this problem. It's called Image Engine, and Image Engine really sits on 3 legs. Mobile detection, which we have already discussed, a component to do image resizing, and a content delivery network that caches that content as close as possible to the user. Now, when I talk about image resizing, actually, I should call it image optimization, because it's not only about the size of the image, it's also about optimizing the format. So what does that look like for a developer? There are really 2 ways to use Image Engine. You can replace your URL to pictures with a URL to Image Engine that piggybacks the URL to the actual image, and that tells Image Engine, look, Image Engine, I know you will do a good job of giving me the picture that is best suited for every mobile device. Go ahead and do it for me. And then there is another way, which is to start providing specific directives to Image Engine so that Image Engine can do exactly what the programmer is telling it. Now, of course, you can use the WURFL module that I've just introduced together with Image Engine to come up with your own custom politics for serving images. For example, if you are producing scientific literature, you may want certain pictures not to be resized because you want people to be able to zoom and go and look at the detail. Important point, Image Engine is not only about the size, it's about the format. That means that as new format arrive on the market, so WebP, JPEG 2000, but also Hive, which in the plans of Apple will replace JPEG on iOS 11 devices. If you are using Image Engine, you will not need to go back and change legacy content for the new formats. You can just assume that Image Engine will do that for you. If you have a company website, you are welcome to visit demoimageng.in, and this will give you the possibility to see how Image Engine can optimize your website. I have a video real quick. It shows just one website, this one in the slide, and it shows how it takes about 7 seconds once it's optimized, and up to 12 seconds without optimization. So you're welcome to do the same with whatever site you like. And I mean, this slide shows an 89% reduction in size. Typically, you have something around 60–65% payload reduction, and this is pretty pretty significant. Also because those seconds saved to access the page, it means money for e-commerce, but pretty much for every website who doesn't want to see their users go away. I'm done. Here are the resources for the things that we discussed today. And if you have questions, I'm here. Oh, excuse me, guys. Forgot to say one important thing. We are silver sponsors. We have a booth on the other side of the hotel, and you're welcome to come by, and we can introduce you to tell you more about our content and about our products. Steve, Joe, and Jonathan, can you please stand up for a second so you will find either me or one of my colleagues there, and they will be more than happy to scan your badge and answer any question you may have. Thanks. There is a question. Oh.
Yeah, I know it's hard to see from the stage light. The question is, who's early adopters? Was there people particularly asking for this, and who's using it for?
Okay, so just to repeat the question for those who may not have heard it, the question is if there is a industry demand for this and if there are adopters. And the answer is yes, there is a lot of demand, and there are a lot of adopters, particularly in the world of e-commerce, because e-commerce is really where 2 or 3 seconds difference for looking at the catalog of products translates directly into thousands of dollars per day, or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars per year lost in revenue. Well, we're trying. Another question?
No, I was going to say that it's probably safe to say that the largest CDNs in the world is using our NGINX module as well. So we have that NGINX module has been out for a couple of years, or at least a year now, and there's many of them.
Yeah, so which customer do you have in mind particularly?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say which customer, but it's probably 2 or 3 in the list of the top CDNs in the world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, our product is well, maybe AWS has a very scaled down version of WURFL that they use to expose a couple of properties, like his mobile or his SmartTV. There is a WURFL under the hood. And I'm sorry, guys, if you're raising your hand, I'm not seeing it. I don't think I'm seeing any hands. So I think that's it. Thanks a lot for your time.